Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. And the Giants have signed a quarterback, and boy, he is fun. His name is Jameis Winston. Is he fun? Is he entertaining? I've come to the word. It is entertaining, right? Like I've railed against I don't think he's that fun when he's your quarterback, right? I don't think interceptions are that funny and the quotes are that funny when he's losing your team's games. So I've come on but again, I've watched this film. I was like, this is definitely not boring. Entertaining is the word to describe Jameis Winston. I don't know how many games he'll start for the Giants, Justin, but one thing I do know is that he is not their plan to start 17 games.
We're live on YouTube right now, doing this. Comment the one word that comes to mind when you think of Jameis Winston. Happy Pizza Friday, Bobby Skinner. I mean, I'm driving home. I got pizza in the car. I got a sandwich in the car from the pizzeria. I got a big tub of sauce because my girl Nicole from my local pizzeria hooks me up, and then I got a message from Taylor Jackson, head of our social team, being like, "Oh, we got Talking Giants." I'm like, "Oh, well, what happened? Did a minor player sign?" Nope, freaking Jameis Winston on a Friday night. So how do you like that Friday news dump? Coincidence that it's happening 4 hours after Aaron Rodgers visits Pittsburgh? Probably not. But yeah, this guy is if there's one thing that I'm confident in, is that probably since Daniel Jones 2019 or even Eli Manning in 2015, we're going to have a quarterback that's going to throw the ball down the field, allow our receivers to make plays, and it's going to be something. It's going to be something.
If that's the category, it might be more than ever. Any quarterback ever. So let's talk about like what Jameis brings as a player, the contract and stuff, and then we can get into a little more of the what does this mean, right? Because I'll be honest, my first thought is like, okay, we'll have clarity going into the draft based on what they do or don't do, right? If they bring in Russ, then I don't think they're drafting a QB, at least in the first round. If they don't, then I would be pretty confident that they're going to try and do what they can to get a quarterback in the first round. But let's talk about Jameis Winston as a quarterback. I mean, he's 31 years old, former first overall pick, joins the Giants. 2-year, $8 million deal that can get up to $16 million incentive. So again, that is a backup quarterback contract. That is not a starter. Last year for the Browns went 2-5. In his 7 starts, had 12 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, but 291 yards per game, a ton, right? Then it started in 2023 with the Saints in 2022. They opened it up a little bit. Again, 286 yards per game, 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions in 3 starts where he went 1-2. And then the year where he actually won the most games was that Saints year with Sean Payton, where they went 5-2, but they were barely letting him throw the ball. He had 167 yards per game, 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And then 2020 didn't start. And then the last year at the Bucs where he had the 30-30 year. So again, it is a wide open, reckless type of ball that he plays. And I don't think that they brought Jameis Winston in here to do what Sean Payton did with him in 2021, which was, just very, very much trying to limit what he was and stop the turnovers and rely on that defense and Alvin Kamara. It is, again, like I've went through I'm through a game and a half of film, Justin, and I've actually only seen 1 interception so far. I've seen 7 dropped interceptions, but what I've also seen, and I'm not exaggerating at that number, 7 dropped interceptions in a game and a half of where we have only seen 1 interception so far. What I've also seen is a dude that just flat out rips it, right? We were talking pre-show, Justin. I was like, this is actually like watching yourself play Madden, where it's almost like you're just out there screwing around, because he rips it outside the numbers on, hitches, out routes, versus tight coverage versus zone, tight coverage versus man. It's not so much like when you think of like Russell Wilson, like, oh, he throws the ball down the field. Russ throws verticals down up the sideline.
Yeah.
Jameis actually doesn't throw that a ton, right?
No.
Jameis isn't looking for the wide receiver that stacked a man on the outside or give a play. He is looking to fit it in the intermediate, middle, or like in the intermediate part of the field, or those out routes and corner routes that are outside the numbers where he will just rip it in there.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time where we look at the deep ball, and we look at the 20+ air yards, and especially when we were talking about Russell Wilson That's where Russell Wilson, lives and survives and thrives. But for Jameis Winston, I feel like a very important area of the field to look at is between 10 to 19 yards, or even just looking at Jameis Winston from 10 air yards and plus. Because if you just look at his 20-yard numbers, I think he had 9 completions on like 20 or 30 attempts. I think the number is 30 because the completion percentage was not very good. 30 deep ball attempts in 7 games started and 12 games total appeared, I think is also pretty crazy too. But yeah, I don't think Jameis is going to come in here and light the world on fire in terms of the deep ball accuracy. But what I do think he's going to come in and do is I hope that Brian Dable is going to allow Jameis to run play action more often, because Kevin Stefanski, I think with Kevin Stefanski and Jameis Winston, they were like bottom 5 in play action frequency when that was Stefanski's bread and butter a couple years ago. That's a Browns conversation that they should go back to that kind of stuff more. But under center play action stuff, I think that's going to happen with Jameis Winston and Brian Dable. I hope it happens. And then even Jameis Winston kind of running outside the pocket. There were times where I'm watching some of these I looked at a lot of completions. I didn't look at incompletions and interceptions. But there are a lot of times where I'm watching Jameis Winston even outside the pocket, like, even holding your breath a little bit about, where could this ball go? But in terms of the good Jameis numbers and the good Jameis stuff, it's that play action, throwing outside the numbers, and looking at Jameis when it's 10 to 19 yards, not just the 20-yard stuff. But I think that's an extremely important area of the field, because even that 10 to 19-yard range, you're throwing close to the sticks, you're throwing past the sticks, and that's where Jameis really does like to target. It's where he likes to live, and it's also, I think, it's where he likes to die at times too.
Yeah, again, like, it's the good is really good and like fun to watch. Like, man, this is great ball. But again, the issue though, Justin, is that if the throw that he's not looking for is there, it's not even so much that Jameis gets confused, because he does get confused, but it's not so much, it's just like, it's the thing that I'm not looking for is there. So I'm going to hang in here and I'm going to just try and fire it in somewhere.
Yeah.
And there's plays where I've always, there's different levels of interceptions, Justin. There is the inaccurate throw interceptions. There is I see why you got fooled by the defense interceptions. There's this is too risky interceptions. And then there's like the what the heck? Like, I don't know what's going through your mind type of interceptions. And Jameis Winston has a ton of those. And so that's, again, what is the expectation for Jameis Winston? He's a backup quarterback or a bridge quarterback. But I'm telling you right now that this contract and who Jameis Winston is, this is not a plan to get through 17 games. I know I'm stating the obvious, but I want to say that's the difference between being happy with Jameis Winston and the contract, or, like, again, fun. That word fun will not be in your vocabulary if we have to start Jameis Winston for 5-6 games in a row. It just won't. It'll show up at times, but the interceptions, the turnovers aren't going to be funny. And him making light of it and quotes is not going to be funny. It'll be funny for 31 other fan bases when they're watching the Giants and Jameis Winston, but it won't be fun for us. But again, within that, you'll get these games where he throws for a ton of yards, touchdowns, and makes some big plays, and you'll probably win a game or two, depending on if the DBs drop the interceptions in that game or you're able to overcome it. But he's gonna let the wide receivers, like you said, like the wide receivers, the one group that will find it fun is the wide receivers, because Malik Neighbors is going to get, I feel like, more quality targets. Yes. Not so much some of the manufactured stuff the Giants put together for him, especially early on in the season. Darius Slayton is going to be second in Giants all-time receiving. If he has to start for more than a handful of games.
Period, yeah.
Wan'Dale Robinson is probably the one who will like this a little less, because he's not someone who, he'll work quick game, but that's not going to be a big focal point of the offense. And then it'll be up to Theo Johnson to make plays, because he's going to give him the opportunity to make those plays. Yeah,
for sure. You were talking about, Jameis Winston, instead of, learning to, live to fight another down, kind of forcing the issue. We're going to fire that ball in there to a receiver, whether he's open or not, or we're going to fire that ball to another jersey. As comparison, I'm using Daniel Jones as a comparison here. He started 10 games last year, played in 10 games. According to Pro Football Reference, he had 17 throwaways. And I think Daniel Jones sometimes was pretty good at, hey, I'm just going to chuck this ball and, let's deal with an incompletion and, again, learn to live to fight another down. Daniel Jones, 10 games, he had 341 pass attempts. Now, Jameis Winston in 12 games, 7 starts, had 296 passing attempts. So that is less than what Daniel Jones had. How many throwaways from last year do you think Jameis Winston had, Bobby?
2.
He had 4. 4.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So, and in 626 pass attempts in 2019, he had 22 throwaways.
And again, in his last 33 starts, he's 15-18, which again isn't that bad, but he has 63 touchdowns and 50 interceptions, Justin. And then the one time he was winning he was 5-2, had a great touchdown interception ratio of 14-3, but he was throwing for 167 yards per game. That's who not Jameis is, and that's where sometimes we sign somebody or like, oh, he can improve. I think get any idea that Brian Dable is going to, he's going to cut down on the turnovers, but also keep the big plays that Jameis. That's just not going to happen. He's 31 years old. You've seen through the Super Bowl media tour, he's leaned into who he is. Right? Yeah. There's no changing. He knows he's not becoming with the Saints. He thought that he could become a franchise quarterback there, right? So there was I think an overcorrection into trying to change what he is. He knows what he is. He's a backup quarterback. And when he comes in, he's going to make the most of his opportunity to be entertaining, because I think that's his main goal in life now, is to be entertaining and put together himself in a career where he's, people want to talk to him and use him and media or whatever, because you're going to watch him play backup quarterback way more than you are going to watch Joe Flacco play backup quarterback or bridge quarterback for a team. So that shit's not changing. So what will be fun is the film breakdowns, right? My film breakdowns this year will be fun to watch, because you're going to have a lot of big boy throws, more big boy concepts, and then there's also going to be Bobby, pounding on his desk and like, what the hell are we looking at here? Type of plays with Jameis Winston. So, I mean, that's what you're getting with him, right? And he's 31 years old. He's played a lot of football. He's started a lot of football games. We're not really breaking down. People know what they're getting out of Jameis Winston. With what he is, right? Yeah. You're not that I feel like that Saints year is a total, where he went 5-2, 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. I think that's a total outlier to what he is. And again, he is not playing that way anymore. He is much closer to every other year, where it's 300 yards per game and then the same amount of interceptions as touchdowns.
Yeah. And I there's some good Jameis stats. I think there's some more stuff that maybe I want to get into, but the stuff that's most concerning to me, Bobby, is the accuracy metrics that I like to look at, like the CPOEs of the world, the on-target percentage, which I don't like to live and die by that according to Pro Football Reference, but I mean, it had Geno Smith as with the highest on-target percentage from this past year. I don't think that's the most outlandish thing. Now, the average this year for on-target percentage for quarterbacks was 75%. Jameis this year, his on-target percentage was 70.4. In any year in which he's had over 100 passing attempts, 2022 with New Orleans, it was 73. 2021 with New Orleans, it was 70.4. 2019 with the Bucks, it was 69.9. So I'm worried about, I as time has gone on, like you've even helped convince me, like, hey, look at the EPA per play stuff. That's kind of leaves CPOE behind a little bit, but I still like to look at it just as an overall measure of accuracy. I'm worried about Jameis Winston being an accurate quarterback, and a lot of the times the inaccurate throws aren't just winding up on the ground; they're winding up in another opponent's jersey, and another opponent, going to the other uniform, and even hey, let's talk about EPA per play. Even with all the exciting stuff, and hey, he throws 13 touchdowns in 12 games, or 7 starts and stuff like that. The interceptions hurt you so bad that Jameis, out of 32 quarterbacks, if you look at these EPA per play charts, whether it's, the short game, the intermediate game, or the deep game, you're finding him 26th out of 32 quarterbacks that qualified, because there's around 32 quarterbacks that had 300 quarterback plays last year. He's around 26, 27, 28 in those QB lists, and there's not really that one category where it's like, wow, he stands out here. And I think it's because the interceptions kind of hurt him really bad.
Yeah, then they hurt the teams that he's played for really bad. So, Justin, won't you talk to us? Actually, you know what? I'm going to talk to you about something before we talk about what this means for the quarterback position for the Giants. And I want to talk SeatGeek. The MLB season is just a corner basketball and hockey seasons heated up, and artists like Kendrick Lamar, The Weeknd, and let's see who else. Who else is on tour? Is Fred Eaglesmith on tour? I don't know, but anyways, they're all on tour. And with our partners at SeatGeek, you can now get 10% off any tickets with code Giants 2025. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. Justin, talking about going to games, what is 2 games that the Giants have that like you really wish you had tickets to?
Like in the past, or
let's say in the past 6 years.
I've been to most of those games.
Okay, let's think of
How
some
about away?
games.
How about away?
Yeah,
I wish
away
I
game.
had tickets to the Giants Vikings playoff game, even though I love Mr. Purple. And then I would have loved to witness in person Kenny Galladay's touchdown catch.
Okay. Well,
So
there's 2 games that I
weeks.
think of, Justin. In 2019, Daniel Jones' debut, right? That was really fun.
Versus
against
Jameis.
who? Jameis Winston. What about 2021? The Giants' overtime comeback against the Saints, where we're like, oh my gosh, Daniel Jones is like kind of balling through 4 games. Also a comeback win against Jameis Winston.
Wow.
I was looking at my old Jameis Winston tweets, Justin, and I was like, Daniel Jones comeback wins versus Jameis is simply just an art. Because those are like 2 of Daniel Jones' best games. I also saw one from 2018 where my roommate Tim, who inspired Tim from Florida, who's a Bucs fan, and I'm like, I love hearing my roommate Tim complain about Jameis interceptions. It's not gonna stop, Tim. Well, now who's got the gun? Anyways, with over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. Right now, you can get tickets to baseball games, NBA, and NHL, not to mention tons of concerts and other events. And the Homestead Miami race I'm going to this weekend. Thank you for doing this Friday, Giants, not Saturday or Sunday. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know if you're getting a good deal. Just look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad. And you know we came through for you guys. You can use code GIANTS2025 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code GIANTS2025. You'll be glad you did. I don't know if I'm being delusional in this whole, like, what does this mean for the New York Giants quarterback position? And I think that, if anyone wants to make a proclamation, it's like, okay, they're going to draft a quarterback in the first round, right? Because Jameis is kind of the pair with, when we were talking about free agent quarterbacks and free agent previews, it was like, okay, well, whichever QB they sign will indicate kind of what they want to do with the draft, with Russ being the guy who can be both. He can be your, hey, we don't like in these QBs, we start him for 17, and he's also can be the bridge quarterback. But here's the thing. Let's say Russell Wilson is the quarterback that they want to sign, assuming that Aaron Rodgers goes with the Steelers, because, all the reports are that this means that does not mean the Giants are out on Aaron Rodgers. And let's say they were like, hey, we're going to sign Russell Wilson. We don't like the quarterbacks in the draft, or we're not going to get one because they're going to go top 2. You would still need a backup quarterback for Russell Wilson. And Jameis Winston, again, has, I think, one of the better backup QBs, right? Like last year, he was the one guy who was cheaper than Drew Lock that I would have preferred to have over Lock. Like, you still do need a backup if you sign Russell Wilson as your quarterback and you're not drafting one. And that can't be Tommy DeVito.
Yeah, to me, like in my brain, I think, oh, well, having Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston is a little bit redundant. But still, I can't.
How is it redundant? Who's your backup QB if you sign Russ?
You're right. And that's why I can't disagree with you. I'm just so, I cannot see this offseason finishing without the Giants drafting a quarterback that they believe is their future guy. I can't see it because they were so. Why would you bring these guys back? And I keep going back to fucking January.
Why would they be all in on Matthew Stafford?
I know.
And playing this waiting game with Aaron Rodgers. I'm telling you, you don't do those things to draft a QB. I know everyone
but they said over and over again, the goal of this offseason, John Maris said over and over, and I'm not, hey, who cares what John Maris says? They're just trying to get through a media session so fans aren't going to throw eggs at the freaking building. Even though that's a good idea. Well, you got a good arm, let's show up to 1925 East Giants Drive. The goal of this offseason is to find the franchise quarterback. And that guy's found through the draft. And even if
that's the goal. But again, if they don't think that quarterback is worthy of, like, they don't believe in that quarterback, or they think they're going to go back top 2, that's my goal too, right? It was my goal in last year's draft. It didn't make me want to draft quarterbacks I didn't believe in, though.
Why I'm stumbling over my words.
George Foreman's dead.
What?
George Foreman passed away.
Oh no!
I'm tweeting it from the
Simple Man Radio account. Please. I have
that one actually. I don't really celebrity deaths or how are you different than that person, but George Foreman, man, that one sucks. I love George Foreman.
I think me and my father.
Who doesn't like George Foreman?
I think we have some signed Big George stuff somewhere, but the big three boxers are dead. George Foreman, Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali. Anyway,
Mike Tyson's not dead yet.
Well, of that era, I should say. Did you tweet it out, Some Man Radio?
Yes.
Great. Why I'm stumbling over my words is it goes back to the point that I had on the last show that we did. I'm dying to know how Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll saved their jobs, because every single domino that's fallen this offseason seems like a pivot, where Stafford pivot, Rodgers visits the Steelers. 4 hours later on a Friday night, Jameis Winston is a Giant. That is a pivot. It's not making sense to me in my brain about what their plan. It's not a good plan, and it doesn't seem like a good vision.
Okay, again, that's what we'll do an episode where we say why they're in this shitty situation and bringing back Joe Schoen and Brian. It is dumb, or at least especially on the Joe Schoen point of view. But and again, I'm not sitting here being like, oh, this doesn't mean this. They're still not drafting a quarterback. They very well may. Right, like there's a very good chance, and I think even if they don't take one at 3, they're going to be a team that either trades back up into the first or takes one with their second round. I think there's no way we're not getting out of a Friday night of the draft without the Giants bringing in a quarterback.
Yeah.
No matter what their plan was, even if they got Matthew Stafford. But my point is, I don't think the signing of Jameis signals that, right? If Jameis was signed on day 1 of free agency, sure. But Jameis has been available for, a week, 2 weeks now. The same as others, right? So I still think that they are in on Rodgers. I don't know. Again, I don't think anyone knows what his intentions are. Maybe Pittsburgh does after today, but I still think they're in on that. And they were not. They thought Matthew Stafford was their quarterback. They were trading picks and going to give him $110 million. The idea that they were going to pair that with a first-round quarterback, to me, is just wrong. I don't believe that for 1 second. I'm not saying they're not going to draft a QB. I think they might, but I don't think signing Jameis Winston changes a whole lot with their plan. Like if Russell Wilson if they sign Aaron Rodgers on Tuesday, Justin, I won't be surprised because they signed Jameis already. I'll be surprised because I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to pick the New York Giants as his quarterback.
Correct. 100%. And I don't think like I said, I don't think it's a coincidence that this happened now.
Yeah, that's fair too. Like I'm not sitting here saying, oh, it has nothing to do with Rodgers meeting with Pittsburgh today or anything, and the fact that Rodgers doesn't have anything set up with meeting with the Giants. But at the same time, he may have something set up with the Giants. We don't know, right? Like it took Jerry Dulac, breaking the news about Rodgers meeting with Pittsburgh and then all the other big insiders. caught wind of it afterwards because they saw that and started texting like, "Is he there? Is he there?" Because that was set up, planned. He was in the building before any big insider found out, and then Jerry Dulac, whoever his source inside the building, is like, "Guess who's here?" So we'll see. I don't know what's going to happen. Like this doesn't, but Jameis again doesn't. What I will say is we will know though. Eventually, once Russell Wilson signs, wherever and where Aaron Rodgers signs, at that point though, we will know.
Yeah.
What their plans are at quarterback, and that will be including trying to pick a quarterback in the first round. If they go 1-2, then they'll do whatever they can, but we'll know that was their plan, was to hope that one of those two quarterbacks was there. So we will have a good answer, whenever the Aaron Rodgers domino drops.
Can I talk to you about something before we maybe wrap up? Maybe do whatever.
Yeah, these 30-minute episodes, we're killing the listeners. They're like,
I know.
Like, what
but
the hell's
maybe
going on?
We'll milk it a little bit. I'm taking off my headphones because I got to put something on because we have to talk about Bird Dogs. Today's episode is sponsored by Bird Dogs. Bird Dog shorts aren't boxy or stiff like other khaki shorts. They move with you, and the material feels amazing. Bird Dog shorts look great and are versatile enough for just about any occasion. You can wear them to work, for date night, to the golf course, stadium, or even just hanging around watching the game at home. I got a whole bag of Bird Dog stuff from Bird Dogs, and I appreciate them sending me stuff. You can really dress them up or down for anything your busy schedule may throw at you, and even making that so if you wonder if you really ever have to take them off, probably not. Bird Dog shorts, they look good, they feel good, and for a limited time, our listeners get a free hat. The one that I'm wearing right now, with any order when you use code GIANTS at birddogs.com. Get this hat on my head, completely free, when you use code GIANTS at birddogs.com. Support our show and let them know we sent you. You will be glad you did. Get this free hat.
You'll be glad you did. What were you going to say?
No, I don't know what we're going to talk about next. I don't know. We're going to look at the chat.
We could talk with the chat a little bit. It's just, so this is where the whole, and I want to talk about the fun versus entertaining or whatever, and because I don't want to be too much of a poop on fun. Here's what I'll say. I hope Jameis Winston does not start more than 5 games for the New York Giants in the season.
Okay.
Because then
if Shedeur Sanders is the number 2 quarterback, Tommy DeVito is the number 3 quarterback, does that sentence still remain?
Yeah.
Because that's where I feel like this is headed. I feel like it's headed for.
Yeah, I want my young quarterback to play. And if Jameis is if they draft a quarterback who they have the plan to sit for 17 games and not like the bullshit lines that we'd get in training camp, being like, yeah, Jameis is the starter and we want him to play. Like legitimately their plan is for him to sit for 17 games. Jameis Winston is not the quarterback you do that with, because he's going to piss you off and he's going to throw a crazy amount of interceptions. And there's a reason why he hasn't started 17 games, since his time in Tampa, where he threw for 30 interceptions. Obviously, he probably would have started that many games with the Saints that year. But again, that was not the type of Jameis Winston that we're getting as the Giants quarterback. So we'll see. Again, I'm working on, I've got my Cam Ward evaluation done. I want Cam Ward. I don't want Shedeur Sanders. I think Shedeur Sanders can find success in the NFL. I don't want him at pick 3. We'll see how that all plays out. We'll get a quarterback draft preview out for draft month. But that's where I stand with the Jameis fun stuff. If he starts for 5 games or less, yeah, I think I can look back at that a little fondly. If he's starting more than 5 games, I'm going to be driven crazy by the interceptions, and so will everyone else, right? Everyone else will jump on with me. I won't be on an island at that point, where no one will find that shit funny in the Giants fan base. Again, the Jets fans, the Carolina Panthers fans, they'll look at what's happening to us and be like, boy, that's fun and entertaining. We won't be saying that.
Cannot wait. I mean, remember when Brian Dable came in here as head coach and he was like, yeah, I don't mind if Daniel Jones makes mistakes. And then he had the lowest interception rate in the league in 2022. And anytime he did make a mistake, Brian Dable would have laser beams that would go through Daniel Jones's face and throw iPads at him. And that went on for like a couple years. And I just find that to be really funny that like I think Jameis is going to be aggressive and Jameis is going to be Jameis. And I think Brian Dable's going to call stuff that's going to allow for Jameis to be aggressive. And I just can't wait for whatever glares and screams or objects that Brian Dable's going to throw at Jameis.
It'll be interesting to see how he handles Jameis, because Jameis isn't Daniel Jones, right? Where Daniel Jones is someone that, will take that in. I don't know. Like, at the end of the day, again, we're talking, but this is a big episode. But at the end of the day, we are talking about a backup QB, right? Like, it's not the same as Drew Lock, but like when the Giants signed Drew Lock last year, there wasn't this like all of this. It's just like, oh, he is a backup quarterback. And I think Jameis is. Obviously, Jameis, I think is much better than Drew Lock. And he is more entertaining than Drew Lock. And he's a bigger name from our first overall pick. He started a lot of games in the NFL. So
you want to know what frustrates me? Hey, credit to even you.
We got to do a little Jordan Humphrey.
We do. Little Jordan Humphrey. That was the talk around the warehouse today. A lot of people excited about that.
I stopped myself from making actually, you know what? I did make a big Jordan joke. I said on the Instagram caption, I was like, no word on where Big Jordan will sign.
Sure. What frustrates me a little bit, and I wasn't saying this in hindsight, so hey, left hand up, I'll hold myself accountable. Who are we, the Commanders? I got to stop saying that. I mean, Drew Lock's APY, was $5 million, and basically 99% of that money was guaranteed. And then, hey, he even earned all $5 million of it. Good for Drew Lock, though. 1 year, $5 million. Now, there's incentives that can be earned, but this is 2 for $8, and Jameis is a cheap deal. Jameis is a lot better than Drew Lock, and this makes me kind of sit back and be like, you know what? Maybe the Giants should have taken quarterback a little bit more seriously last year if they had this many questions about Daniel Jones, and if they really wanted to push him out. Maybe they should have went out and Russell Wilson for the vet man, even though maybe he wouldn't have wanted to come here because he would have. But they should have like I would have rather be talking about Jameis Winston 2 years for $8 million this time last year, when I think they kind of knew that they really had a quarterback problem.
Yeah, again, I said I did in hindsight. Let's say I'd rather have Jameis, but at the same day,
for myself, you were on it.
But at the same time, like, I am not a backup QB enthusiast, where I'm like when everyone was like, I can't believe we didn't do that. I'm like, I kind of like, they wanted to draft a QB, they didn't, and Daniel Jones like the guy who was coming in was going to be the backup. And I don't think I don't know, maybe they beat. Who did they, maybe that Cowboys game on Thanksgiving they win. That's really the only change.
I mean, I also call me an optimist. I didn't think Daniel Jones was just going to be a corpse of himself.
Yeah. Me. Was worried about what he coming off the ACL, but like you said, I was like, maybe he'll be close to what he was.
Once I saw that Texans game, I was like, oh boy.
Oh yeah, the Texans game was like, yep, this is broken. This is training camp. Training camp is real.
Great.
There was one last thing I want to say. Oh, so I've done my Cam Ward evaluation again. We'll have a quarterback draft preview where I give like full what I do like and don't like. And again, there's things I very much worry about Cam Ward. The accuracy. I think some of his aggression, again, like Jameis can go against.
I see a lot of Ward in Jameis, or vice versa. Jameis and Ward.
It's just another year where I'm like, man, it'd be really nice if we just didn't win one of those games, and then we can just, be in the spot to not have to talk about, force yourself into, talking points of like, Shador can be a solid quarterback if you put him in the. And it's like, I don't want to do this. I just want to say I like this guy. I understand there's risks with him, but I really, really like him. And unfortunately, I think the Giants have been out of range for the 4 quarterbacks over the last 2 years. That has been my take on. All right, Justin, we'll get out of here. I think we'll try and get some type of interview done next week. Get back to regular scheduled programming, probably a Tuesday and Friday show. We'll see what we got. Anything else before you go, Justin? Since it is a live show, we don't do the podcast live. Let's find one chat. I've been peeking at it. A lot of unhingedness on it, but let's go. A lot of the R word. Actually, there's more than one R word. The RA word. It's been thrown around in the chat.
What makes you also sure that Jameis can't repeat what he did with Sean Payton?
Because there's no way they're asking him to do that. What he did with Sean Payton was throw for 160 yards per game. And then he had a 5 touchdown, 0 interception game in there where he threw for 120 yards. But he had, again, that's not who Jameis Winston is.
And also, I think Brian Daboll is going to ask, if Jameis Winston is going to start, I think Brian Daboll is going to ask him to throw the ball.
No, yeah, they're not going to, because they're not going to do what Sean Payton did.
No.
Because honestly, even though if Jameis was my starter for 17 games, right, and I would try and do a little more of that. But if he's a backup, which he is, I'm not trying to do that with Jameis. I'm trying to create big plays and explosives. So, they're just not going to do what Sean Payton did. If they draft a quarterback or whatever, and he tears his ACL in week 1, yeah, they may be like, all right, we got to figure out how we get through 17 games of this. That's not the plan with Jameis Winston. All right, that's an episode. We will see you guys. What do you got?
No, I had one more question to finish off.
All right, one more.
What do you hope happens next? We've talked about what could happen. What do you hope happens next?
If a realistic trade up for Cam Ward can't happen, I would like to sign Russell Wilson. And then draft not Shedeur Sanders at pick 3.
And this is realizing that Aaron Rodgers is
and again, I don't want Rodgers at this point, right? I thought Rodgers would come with a slight bit of humility from the Jets, and that's clearly not the case.
Yeah, my heart, and this is what I said before, and my heart believes it, but now my brain, looking at stats and looking at again, like the accuracy stuff, EPA per play, and my heart says that Jameis and Russ are redundant. Because what gets me at least a little bit more excited about Jameis is that he throws to all parts of the field, whereas the playbook is more limited with Russ. But Russ is just better, and
Russ helps you win games better. Jameis is more entertaining and helps your receivers make more plays.
Yeah, believe it or not, I think Malik Neighbors and Darius Slayton, I think there's a world where they would almost rather have Jameis than Russ. And
if you're talking about just stats and stuff, Jalen Hyatt, he'd rather have Russell Wilson.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yes.
The other two guys, they would rather have Jameis. Wandale probably wants neither. He's probably hoping Joe Flacco comes, walking through those doors. So
yeah, I think I also want Russ, not because I'm thrilled and excited with Russell Wilson, but because in my brain, Cam Ward is a Tennessee Titan, just looking at what they've done this offseason.
But again, we'll see. Yeah.
And I don't want this regime drafting a rookie quarterback. Because I think they're kind of dead. I
don't mind them doing that. I just don't want them drafting a rookie QB that I don't project to be a franchise.
I want the next regime to have, and again, this is very morbid of me, but this is just kind of where I'm at.
But you're saying that because you don't like the quarterbacks. If Drake May was there at 3, you wouldn't be like, I don't trust. I don't.
Oh no, not at all.
You'd be like, take this quarterback.
It's a combination of me not being sure about Shedeur, and everything gets harder at the next level. And hey, we'll talk about it when April comes. And then also, I don't want this regime taking a quarterback who I don't particularly believe in just because they want to save their jobs.
Yeah, that's again part of the big reason why I thought they should be gone. All right, that's an episode. We will see you guys on Tuesday, most likely, unless, hey, maybe they get another quarterback between then. But here's something that's nice, Justin. Me and you have been on emergency pod watch for 2 weeks, which is very frustrating. Like, no matter what you're doing, you're like, what if they just sign a quarterback right now? So, luckily, I was folding laundry when this happened, and it was a good excuse to be like, hey, wife, can you fold the laundry? Because I have to look at Jameis Winston film. So, all right, we'll see you guys on Tuesday. Until then, rest in peace, George Foreman. Let's go Big Blue.